Hey everyone, welcome back to Mind Keys. Today's video I think is a very interesting topic, something that's actually very important for harm reduction purposes, keeping you safe and sane through your psychedelic experiences. And more than safe and sane, that really can make the difference between a very uncomfortable, stressful, overwhelming trip and an absolutely ecstatic, healing, clarifying, magical one. This is a huge topic. It's something that I'm thinking about making a course or some sort of more detailed content on at some point, but I've just been kind of mulling it over. And so I want to kind of talk about it here with you and kind of share, because I think you'll get some value out of it right away. So if this is the kind of thing you like, do me a favor and, click thumbs up, click like, share the video with someone, let other people know about this content, because I want this message to get out there. So today's topic is soft skills when it comes to using psychedelics. And I'll tell you what I mean by that, because it's kind of an unclear term. So I've been thinking a lot about what it is that's kept me safe for the vast majority of my hundreds and hundreds of full dose and, mega dose psychedelic experiences. Out of all these hundreds of trips, I've had two that I would legitimately call maybe a bad trip. So that means I've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of positive, successful experiences with psychedelics. Some of those were uncomfortable. Some of those were stressful in moments, overwhelming, all the things, of course, because you're a human being, you have a nervous system, life will be life. Sometimes you just don't feel good for all kinds of reasons, and that's called being a human being. But I knew how to navigate it. And this is something I'm realizing is one of the differences that's made a huge difference for me that not everybody has, especially a lot of the newcomers to working with psychedelics. So I want to kind of articulate this idea to you here. So the idea is that there are a set of learnings called, what we could call soft skills in the psychedelic domain that are protective and very supportive in terms of having a good outcome, a good experience with psychedelics. That some people know about, some people discover, and some people don't ever quite catch on to or learn, but if they did know, might make the difference. And I'm going to lay out three here for you. I think there's a bunch. I'm still listing them out and figuring out what they all are. Now, the interesting thing about these soft skills is that a lot of them are self-taught, self-learned, in a, maybe even kind of automatically generated by the brain as just part of the mind experiencing and learning itself during a psychedelic experience. So I think this falls in that domain of what we don't know that we don't know, right? So in personal development, if you're not familiar, there are kind of four quadrants. There's what we know, right? There's what we know that we don't know, right? So conscious competence, if you will. And then there's conscious incompetence. So there's what we know we don't know, right? So I know I don't know physics, right? For example, I know that I know NLP. I know that I know how to play guitar. I know that I don't know how to play the piano. I kind of get my point, right? And then there is what we don't know that we know, right? So there's a whole set of things that we actually know, but we're not aware that we know it. And then there are the things that we don't know that we don't know. There are things that had never even occurred to us, that are just outside of the whole category of knowledge for us, right? So these are these soft skills that I'm talking about are either things that we don't know that we already know, or they are things we don't know that we don't know, like it hadn't even occurred to us as possible. So let me go ahead and just kind of lay this out for you, see if it resonates, see if this makes sense to you. I think some people, again, discover these automatically. Some people work on these. Some people cultivate these. I know that I had an experience with a manual on how to use psychedelics back in the day that taught me a lot about how to navigate psychedelics. So I'll probably talk about that on another video at some point, because it's a huge part of my life and I think a really valid, valuable piece of information. But I wanted to kind of just extract the knowledge from that and kind of boil it down to three. So here's the first one. The first one is going meta. And if I could teach every beginner who, not even just with psychedelics, but just with life, just with owning a nervous system, having a mind, having emotions, dealing with being human being, and wanting to feel better, wanting to thrive, wanting to, understand oneself more, wanting to feel happier more often, or have more self-control. Going meta would be the first kind of technique that I would teach this person. So other ways of saying going meta are mindfulness, if you will, or or just self-awareness. So the distinction being, when we go meta, we are witnessing our own experience rather than being caught up on the ride of it. So if I'm tripping, right, and I took 2 hits of strong LSD and I'm tripping balls, and if I'm not developed in going meta, in witnessing my own experience and looking at the emotions and the feelings and the thoughts and the sensations and the colors and the patterns moving through me, if I'm inside of all of that and having to feel it completely and totally emotionally, like I'm swept up inside of it, then I'm on a ride that I'm totally overwhelmed by, because it's constantly changing and it's probably intense. If I'm meta to that, then I'm the witness of it. I'm the space in which these things are unfolding. I'm like an opening. I'm a portal of consciousness, of awareness, of attention, paying attention to the feelings, the thoughts, the ideas, the insights, the silliness, the bizarreness, the mystery, the beauty, the whatever it is that moves through me. And I'm just holding space with it as a point of attention, being present, just hanging out with it, just allowing it to be, not trying to change it, not trying to move it, just sitting with it, right? So this is fundamental. I think this is a core fundamental. If you're if you're newly an adult in any way, shape, or form, this is something to pick up. This is something you want to learn. You want to learn how to meditate. You want to learn how to witness your own thoughts and emotions without being swept away in them. You want to learn how to be the space in which these things happen without having to identify with every single thing that moves through you. Because the truth is, a lot of what moves through us as a thought and as an emotion is programmed into us. Whether it's programmed by society around us, by the media we take in, by our relationships, by our families, or whether we programmed ourselves, which is who programmed you more than anyone else is you. We program ourselves. We're programmed in all these ways to have these habituated thoughts, these habituated emotions, which is why we have thought loops, which is why we have emotion loops, which is why we have desires that come back up again and again and again. Why is that? It's because it's programmed into our nervous system, and our nervous system just loops that shit over and over and over. So you take a psychedelic, you switch off the default mode network, your brain is talking to itself in all these new different ways. Different areas of your brain are connecting that don't normally connect, and it can be revelatory, it can be amazing, it can be beautiful, it can be strange, it can be daunting, it can be confusing. It's like that metaphor, where was that? I think it was in Michael Pollan's book, of it's like shaking a snow globe, and all of a sudden the data, the information, the wisdom, the experience, the sensations are moving through your nervous system in a whole new way. And if you can't sit back and witness that and just be present to it, you're just going to be, again, scattered all over the place, overwhelmed, confused, hung up on little things here or there. You get caught up in a meaning, you get in a thought loop. All of that happens from not being in a place of being meta, right? So this is that the value of non-attachment, the value of holding space. And interestingly enough, if you read the Johns Hopkins PDF that they put out on how they do psychedelic therapy, this is one of the core kind of reframes, one of the core tweaks, one of the core methodologies to psychedelic therapy. What makes psychedelic therapy effective, one of the things that has to happen is you need to be able to go meta. You need to be able to be mindful. So I know I'm kind of ranting. I've been talking 5 minutes on this point, but I hope you're getting that this is super valuable. If for everyone, this is the place to start. And this will be something I'm building a mini course soon on how to deal with emotions that come up from a psychedelic experience. This will be part of that because it's so fundamental. It's so essential. It's such a core, crucial life skill. So that would be number one. And again, there's a bunch of these. I'm just going to riff 3 here for you and just kind of share my thoughts on it. But there's a bunch. There's, I don't know how many, but there's a lot of different processes, different attitudes, different ways of relating that make all the difference. So going meta is really going to save you. You know, a second one would be surrendering. This is almost, in a certain sense, the opposite of going meta. So when you go meta, you're kind of not really dissociating, but you're kind of distancing yourself and being present with, and you might feel something really intensely, but you're witnessing it. So with surrendering, you have the opposite experience. Let's say, and this is generally something that's very protective. It's very healing and safe. My experience is that I think that fundamentally, when we're working with psychedelics and we're working with the nervous system, from a spiritual point of view, what we're working with is the life force. We're working with what could be called Kundalini. And that life force gets amplified and released through the body, and it's powerful. And if you're really high on a psychedelic, that life force is like moving through you really potently, lighting you up like a freaking neon sign, like you're electric, right? I mean, it's an old cliche term from the 60s, and it's valid, it fits, it's accurate, right? But when you're lit up like that and your life force is moving through your body powerfully, you know, what yogis from India or Buddhist practitioners that kind of directly engage the Kundalini system have to say about it is that it can be dangerous. If you open up too much too fast, it can actually fry your nervous system. And there are certain approaches that make that work and make that more safe, and certain approaches that don't. And my experience is that this is why you want to get good at surrendering. Surrendering is, I think, when the energy becomes so strong in you, becomes so powerful, whether it is an emotion, whether it is just literally the sensation of like you're humming and you're buzzing, or you're so filled with energy and life force that it's almost overwhelming and you feel like you're bursting at the seams. You probably know what I mean if you've ever been really high on a psychedelic. What you want to do is you want to surrender in that moment. You want to let go. Instead of resisting it, instead of trying to keep your mind and trying to stay in control and think and make sense of and take action, you want to go lay down. You want to lay down, and you might have an out-of-body experience. It might get so deep that you're like, you know, floating above your own body. That's like, I've been there. That happens. You want to surrender to what's going to happen, because you're not going to die. You're very unlikely to die on a psychedelic. But what is going to happen is that your nervous system is trying to reset itself and heal itself. And that life force is so powerful that if you resist it, that's what's going to fry you. If you open up to it and you allow it to move through you, it'll heal you. It'll turn from overwhelming and stressful to ecstatic. It'll turn from frightening and terrifying to blissful, to beautiful. And oftentimes what I found happens is when we're fighting that energy as it's moving, it'll feel intense, it'll feel powerful, it'll feel potent. But as we surrender to it and just relax into it and merge with it, just completely merge with the energy, not trying to make sense of it, not trying to think about it, not trying to control it, it's in charge now. Your own life force is in charge of you, if that makes sense. So the deeper intelligence, the core kind of current, the electrical current of who you are is now running the show temporarily. And it's smart and it's powerful and it's tapped into the universe. And when you surrender to that, it clarifies and it heals. And what I found actually happens is as soon as I surrender, everything lightens up. It gets clearer, it gets more peaceful, it gets more easy, it gets more comfortable, it gets more beautiful. And I actually find that I feel more refined, I feel clearer, the visions get crisper, they get sharper, the geometry becomes more balanced, becomes more beautiful, the emotional tone of the whole thing becomes loving and sweet and peaceful and exquisite instead of terrifying and overwhelming and all that. So surrendering is an important skill set when you're dealing with your own life force in general. If you're doing Kundalini yoga, if you're doing some sort of other kind of practice that stimulates these forces, same thing applies. Knowing how to surrender and allow the energy to move through you, not try to control it, not try to be in charge, but let it be in charge, is a crucial skill. It'll keep you sane. It'll protect you. This is one of those things that a lot of people don't know. And you know, you get online and you read trip reports and accounts, and this is often where people who don't know any better get in a lot of trouble. They get too high, the life force is moving, and they're trying to stay in charge, you know, running their ego. You know, that's when you got to put your ego down, quit, you know, playing games and trying to be you, and just let what emerges emerge, right? So that would be number 2. Number 3 would be meeting, and this kind of really goes, again, with what I just said, meeting everything with love. Meeting everything with an attitude of love, of just appreciation, of gratitude, of wonder. So some sadness wells up in you, meet it with love, right? Some joy, like childlike joy that maybe you're such a kind of tightly controlled person. You're not used to feeling childlike joy and wonder, and it frightens you a little bit. Meet it with love, right? You hear some sort of powerful, you know, teaching, meet it with love and appreciation and wisdom. You have an insight about somebody who maybe you don't like. Maybe you're processing a you know, kind of a contentious relationship you have with someone. Meet it with love. You know, what are some other examples? Again, it's that same thing. So here's another great example. You encounter some sort of entity, right? So I'll just say off the bat, I have kind of I have an in-between stance on entities. I don't think they're all real, but I do think sometimes you encounter entities. I think sometimes what you're encountering is a projection of your own mind. Sometimes what you're encountering is something that your own kind of deeper intelligence is creating. But sometimes what you're encountering is, you know, something else from another dimension. I think that's also real. In my experience, in those moments, whatever it is, whether you're meeting a part of your own mind or you're meeting something that actually exists out there in the universe, another dimension, and it sees you and it's tuned into you, and maybe it's friendly and maybe it's not. If you meet it with love and respect, even as it's being, you know, maybe it's aggressive, maybe it's mean, maybe it's, you know, malicious in some way, and that's scary. When you meet it with love, what you'll find is that protects you. That when you meet it with love and you honor it and you respect it and you have boundaries with it and you're not trying to destroy it or manipulate it back or play games with it or insult it, you're just present with love, with appreciation, with acknowledgement. Again, that'll protect you. That'll protect you in a way that, you know, maybe not always and maybe not 100% of the time, but that will in general maintain a safe space for you. And I think that there's a reason for that. I think that love is an incredibly deep, powerful energy in life. I know this. I don't think it. I know it. I'm actually being shy right now, not sharing my own experiences of the power of love in terms of what it is on a spiritual level. But for the purposes of this conversation, let's just say that love is an important skill to master and bring to any area of life. And that's true, you know, when you're not on a psychedelic. That's true when you're relating to yourself. That's true when you're relating to anyone around you. If you can, you don't have to be like deeply in love and goo goo gaga, but if you can just meet the world with a sense of like goodness in your heart, respect in your heart, kindness in your heart, patience in your heart, openness, non-violence, you know, just centeredness, just willingness to accept what's present and honor it. That's going to really serve you everywhere you go, right? Again, this is another one of those things that is so useful across the board. This is the life lesson. This is why these are the kinds of skills I think psychedelics teach us that are actually the most valuable thing in our day-to-day lives, because they apply in the spiritual realm, they apply psychologically for your own self-relationship, and they apply, you know, materially when it comes to relationships around you. And so these are just 3 examples of the soft skills that I think are super crucial, that make all the difference. And again, if you read trip reports on, you know, Reddit, on, you know, blue light forums, wherever you see them, and you look at these people's experiences, oftentimes when they're having a bad experience, it's because they're either swept up in the emotion, trying to take action on it when they should just be chilling. It's because they're not surrendering when it's time to surrender and let go. And their ego gets caught up, but their ego's all fractured and fragmented, and then it gets all scrambled. Or they're not meeting whatever it is they're experiencing with love, and they, you know, push away some part of them that they've been repressing for a long time that comes up in an experience, or you know, they have some sort of an experience again with an entity or with an intelligent, you know, life energy that comes to them, you know, a plant deity or, you know, whatever. And instead of receiving whatever it is that there might be to be taught or learned, if the person isn't honoring and coming from a loving place, then what happens is some sort of weird kind of, you know, bogus interaction, really, to quote Bill and Ted there. So I just want to kind of lay that out there for you guys. Hopefully this is of value to you. I think it's fascinating. It's something I'll be working on articulating a lot more, you know, understanding what all these are. If you agree, drop me a line below. Let me know what it is that resonates for you here. And let me know if you've learned any particular skill sets, any soft skills like this, that are attitudes, that are mindsets, that are approaches, that are protective or that are healing or that are positive or that have really served you in the psychedelic space. Let's talk about it more. And until we do, much love and thanks for watching. Take care, guys.